This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college sports fans, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And Brandon, today I say college sports fans because we're back to a little bit of football and a little bit of basketball on the docket.
We're back at it.
I mean, what was
Bringing
it?
them both in.
2 weeks ago, I lied to you guys, and I said we're done with football for a while. But then me and Brandon went ahead and said, oh, wait, there was a Senior Bowl that happened. We could talk about that. National Signing Day is coming up, and I know that you guys are dying to hear what we have to say about both of those things. And then at the end of the podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit of college basketball, whether the one and done is kind of fading away. And Brandon, we're going to start with the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl to me is usually an interesting thing because everyone knows who the top of the draft is usually going to be. Like the guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, they don't need to play in the Senior Bowl because it's like we know they're going to be top prospects. But it's like, okay, here are the seniors. These are the guys that have stayed in college, and you might have to see them. And we had a lot of guys who, especially at the quarterback position, Carson Wentz, yes, he's going to be a first rounder, but he's a guy that nobody really knew about, so we want to see him play. Dak Prescott, a guy where it's like, are you even going to get drafted, young fella? There were other guys like Kenyon Drake from your Alabama, who it's like, where are you going to go as a late round running back? And I want to start with, to me, the most interesting question was not even Carson Wentz. He was not the most interesting thing to me. The most interesting thing was Dak Prescott because he won the MVP, and everyone's going to look at that and go, okay, he could turn into something.
Yeah, he wins most outstanding player honors, and I think that this is really positive for Dak Prescott because I think throughout the season he kind of got lost. I think he got lost in the mix of all these other players, all these other quarterbacks.
And the Bulldogs didn't have that great of a season.
They really didn't. You know, they kind of started off okay, but they fell back. You know, they were one of the teams in the West that just kind of fell back, and people didn't really take a look at them. But I think that what he did over the weekend at the Senior Bowl solidifies that he will have a spot in the upcoming NFL draft. And I can't say that he secures himself a high spot in the draft, but he secures himself a spot in the draft. I definitely think so. He has a nice outing. People take notice. That's what he wanted. That's what happened. And again, he earns MOP honors, most outstanding player. So I think at the end of the day, Dak Prescott did just enough to show people, just because my team wasn't great during this regular season, I'm still here. I'm still a good player, and I can make a difference on your team.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're sitting there going, but Ricky, what was his stats? He went 7 of 10 in the game. Not a huge sample size, but 7 of 10, 61 yards, had a touchdown, finished with a rating of 154.2. The quarterback that started over him and Brandon Allen, 7 of 10, 106 yards, a rating of 159. So both quarterbacks for the South really top performers. And for me, for Dak Prescott, it's just the question of where is he going? I feel he's going to be drafted. Let's be honest. He is going to be drafted, but what kind of a player are we going to see from Dak Prescott? And the one thing that they asked him, I want to say it was Flanagan, after the game was over, they handed him the Reese's Outstanding Player, which if you have the time, find the footage from that because it's great. The guy that they got, that's representing Reese's, went to hand him the trophy and then stuck out his right hand as to shake his hand, and Dak didn't see it. And it's so funny just watching this guy's awkwardness of okay, I got shut down. And then he's looking like Did anyone else see that? It's like, yeah, dude, we saw you get your hand shut down. But the one thing they asked him was, he's a mobile guy. In the draft process, is he going to use look at Cam Newton. Look at the mobile guys like Russell Wilson, Cam Newton going to the Super Bowl. I can do that same thing. I saw that question was like, I wouldn't say that, because you're kind of living up to some big britches if you're going to walk in and say, yeah, I'm Cam Newton, when nobody's even looking at you in the first round. But it's all about Dak. The biggest question with Dak is, will he be able to improve and develop into an everyday starter at the quarterback position?
Well, I think that the answer would be yes, because we've looked at guys such as, how about Alex Smith? When he was with the 49ers, people looked at him and said, something's going wrong here. What is wrong with this kid? He has had, but then you have to look at it. He had multiple offensive coordinators. That does not help. And now you look at him with the Chiefs, makes a playoff run. Sometimes it's all about the scheme. Sometimes it's all about the organization, who you're working with. All those different factors come into play. But if Alex Smith is able to make it, if Colin Kaepernick is able to make it, and Kaepernick has had his ups and downs, clearly his downs lately, Dak Prescott reminds me more of a little bit of a Colin Kaepernick. You can work with that. It's raw talent that you can really try and hone in and be able to use farther down the road. You're going to be able to see that talent come to fruition. It's no longer raw talent. You have now done something with it. And I think that that's what Dak Prescott looks like to me. I think he's a good quarterback. I've been a Dak fan for a little while. I think that he's definitely going to have a home somewhere, but it may take him a little bit. May take him a little longer than other guys.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing I want to correct myself is I said that Brandon Allen started over Dak. It wasn't that Allen started over him. Jake Coker started the game for the South. Allen just had the most yards and the better rating of any of the quarterbacks on the South side. But, yeah, I mean, the one thing with Dak is, like I said, his development in the NFL. And the one thing I will say that's going to help him is he's 6'2", 210 pounds. He's tall. He's got a bit of size to him. And he's going to be, to me, he's going to be a mid-round. Some team in the mid-rounds, maybe 3, 4, are going to go, okay, well, we didn't take one of those Goff, Lynch, Wentz. We didn't take one of those guys. Let's go ahead and take this guy. And I mean, if you look at the north side, Carson Wentz, who started the game for them, 6 of 10 for only 50 yards. And you're looking at that going, yeah, Ricky, but he's still a good quarterback. If you're an NFL team looking at Carson Wentz, when you see those numbers, do you still think that, okay, how much of this do we put into his draft stock? And do you say, okay, maybe I got to take a 3rd, 4th, 5th look at this guy because he really didn't blow away the senior game. I know that a lot of people get reps, but he didn't really blow anybody away.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that I don't think that you necessarily need to blow anyone away. I think that you just need to be solid at the end of the day. That's what you need to do. You need to be solid. You need to show that you're in the right place, that you deserve a spot. That's all you need, because you're just fighting for a spot. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, draft stock for these guys, they know they're not going first round. They know they're not going second.
Well, unless you're like
that.
Carson Wentz is maybe the only one.
Maybe, but you have to take a look at it. Does not matter. Guys like Marcus Colston, back in the day when he was good, 7th rounder from Hofstra. Guy was good. You find gems, and it doesn't really necessarily matter where you go for most of these guys down here towards, I won't say the bottom, but in the middle, it matters that you go. That's what I think. And I think that Dak Prescott did what he needed to do to make sure he put himself on the map, and he did.
And you know who, to me, this is not a quarterback, not a wide receiver. This is a running back. And you know who, to me, I really like, and this is a running back that I feel like is going to be taken maybe 4th, I'm going to say 4th, 5th round at the moment. and I think he is going to develop into something very nice. Kenneth Dixon out of Louisiana Tech. I mean, in the Senior Bowl, only 9 attempts, 27 yards. His longest run was 10 yards. But this is a guy that, like, I've seen play because he's played against Illinois. After I've seen him play against Illinois, I'm like, I'm going to continue to watch this guy. And the more I watch of Kenneth Dixon, that's just the one guy that kind of sticks out to me that could be one of those gems from the Senior Bowl. But the one thing I want to go back to Wentz for a second, because he went 6 of 10. Should have been 8 of 10 because he had 2 passes that were dropped by receivers. One of those receivers dropping one of his screen passes, Braxton Miller, only 2 catches, 8 yards. His longest was a 9-yard grab. Is he going to, after watching him in the Senior Bowl, I'm sitting there going, is he going to be anything special at the wide receiver position, or is he just going to get drafted and just fade away?
He might. I mean, how many times do we have guys that do that?
Mm-hmm.
Even guys who are pretty good in college, they go to the NFL and there's just not a spot for them. And I think that where Braxton Miller is position-wise, he may be one of those guys that, they have come into a wildcat, stuff like that. I mean, I think Miami for a while had backup quarterbacks that would come in just for that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good in college, but you're just running the wildcat in the NFL. So I think that
kind of like Pat White.
That's exactly who I was thinking. I could not think of the name, but thank you very much.
Went to Miami, became a wide receiver, kind of like Little Vic, Marcus Vic. Good quarterback at Virginia Tech, and
absolutely.
Then came to the NFL, became a wide receiver for the Dolphins, and then nothing.
Absolutely. How about Glenn Gronkowski? Is there room for 2 Gronkowskis in the NFL? Let alone New England.
I don't think Glenn Gronkowski is going to be anything like his brother.
Be hard to.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, God, I hope he's like half as good, or he makes a statement which is half as good as his brother, because, I mean, Rob Gronkowski's fun to watch.
Yes, he is.
And Glenn Gronkowski, when I was watching some of the highlights even after, and some of the analysts, it's like he made that play up the middle where he caught it. It's like, man, that just runs in the family. They just right up the middle catches. That's just what they do. That's what Maryland does. Yeah. I don't even know if Gronkowski's from Maryland.
But no, that's what the Gronkowskis do, and it's always fun watching Rob Gronkowski. But when they come out with reports that the Patriots were talking with Glenn Gronkowski, I mean, can you really put a whole lot of stock into that? Probably not.
You know what?
But I think it would be interesting.
You know what stock I put into that? The stock that I put in that is they talked to him and they said, "Hey, if you go undrafted, we'll sign you and at least invite you to camp."
Exactly.
To prove something because your big brother said that we should.
Well, absolutely.
And I feel like Rob has a little bit of pull with Mr. Kraft like Tom Brady does.
You think?
To where, unless he's out there partying, Robert's saying, hey, you know what, Robert to Rob, we don't want you partying too much, especially after that big Super Bowl win they had.
But how about this? Rob Gronkowski can party. You want to know why?
Because he wins.
He's a winner.
Yeah. Is he a gamer, though, Skip? Is he a winner? Is he a gamer?
He's a gamer. He is a gamer.
You know who's another guy that the only reason why he struck out to me was that he was in this game. He had a sack, 2 tackles, and was all over the field. Is defensive pass rusher on the defensive line, Noah Spence. And if you're sitting there going, Ricky, I've heard that name before, it's because he used to be with Ohio State. Off the field issues got him kicked off the team, and he went to Eastern Kentucky. This is a guy who could slip under people's radars, because just think of this. Obviously, he's good if he was starting at Ohio State. This is a guy that people may look and say, Eastern Kentucky, he's going to be nothing. He has the talent to be a top 20, even maybe a top 10 prospect in this draft. And Brandon, one team that I'm looking at that could make a splash, if Mark's the last mock draft for Most Valuable Podcast for the NFL that came out was Marks. And he had DeForest Buckner, the big 3-4 pass rusher, go kind of early. He had him going number 5 to Jacksonville. If that holds up and Spence has a good combine and some good workouts, I feel at number 11, you know who's drafted at number 11, big guy? You should, because they're one of your favorite teams. Who's drafted at number 11?
The Bears.
The Bears may go ahead and take Noah Spence, the 3-4 pass rusher. Big need, fits the 3-4 system. The only question with him is the off-the-field issue. Can he get past that issue that got him kicked off Ohio State and why he had to go to Eastern Kentucky?
I think that guys can always make up for an off-the-field issue.
I mean, look at what happened with Cam Newton.
It's if it becomes a recurring issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, it's a one-time thing. It's a learning experience. You grow up, and you have to be given that opportunity. The Bears are a team, I think, that would be willing to give that opportunity to get back some pieces of a defense that they badly need.
Well, you guys haven't had a great defense.
No need to sugarcoat. We haven't had a defense. It's been missing in action.
Since you went to the Super Bowl, and I mean, the other things that I'm thinking of, another great, outstanding player from this Senior Bowl on the defensive side, Sean Oakman, who had 2 total tackles. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. The Baylor guy.
6'7". 6'7".
And to me, Spence and Sean Oakman were the top. They were the cream of the crop defensively, and this defense was kind of sprinkled with some okay. Here's someone that could really do something. But the last thing I want to mention with the Senior Bowl, we talked about Wentz, we talked about Dak Prescott. What about the other guys? Like Jay Coker played a little bit. With this game, it's all about scouts seeing these guys for one last time and kind of like an all-star game setting. Do you really believe like a guy like Coker, a guy like Kevin Hogan, a guy like Cody Kessler, who went 4 of 10 for 47 or 45 yards? I know he did have the 1-yard touchdown run for the North. Out of the 3 guys I mentioned, do you see them anywhere? Like during this game, did you say, okay, he is going to be something special during this draft process?
No, but sometimes it's guys like these who end up being the surprises later on because they have a good combine or a team, takes a quote-unquote flyer on them. I think that it's guys like these, though, that you know what you're really going to get from them. But what we even saw with Jay Coker, even in that national... Even in the national trophy.
Okay, Phyllis.
But in that national championship, you could see Jay Coker, he needed to step up more in the pocket. He has things to learn, but you know really what you're going to get from him. It's things like that need to be fixed, but things that can be fixed. I think that there's a definite team out there that's got a need that takes a look at him or Allen or any of those guys and says, you know what? What's it going to hurt us? They're going to be our backup. They could take a guy, behind the Packers. They could take a guy behind Aaron Rodgers. 2 people behind Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're going to sit for a while, but you're going to learn from a very good quarterback.